everybody. Good evening, good night, good morning. Welcome to our monthly episode with FESP. And as usual, we have our friend Roberto Watanabe with us. And today we will keep on the explanation about the book Evolution in Two Words. This is part number 5. If you missed the previous parts, please go to uh, FASP YouTube or ISF YouTube. All those episodes are already recorded there, so you can watch what Watanabe said previously. So, good evening, Watanabe. How are you, my friend?
Good evening, Esteban. I'm fine, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Good, good, good to have you all here.
Yeah,
So, let me let's do our initial prayer.
sure.
Okay. So, let's raise up our thoughts. Let's make connection with our mentors of ESP and Irish Spiritist Federation. Ask them to enlighten Watanabe today. Those who are watching us live, those who are gonna watch us in the future, but may this message reach their hearts, reach their soul, and for somehow help them to evolve and to progress in this incarnation. So be it. Amen. Okay, so good evening, Pati. Good to see you here, Pati. Valdiana Lima de Oliveira. Good evening, Valdiana. So I know every minute counts here. And then I am. Can you see the screen, Watanabe?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good, good. So break a leg.
Okay, thank you, Esteban. Well, hello, everybody. Again, glad to be here with you all. And today we are going to see the fifth part of this book, Evolution in Two Worlds, which was dictated by the spirit André Luiz through the mediumship of Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, two mediums here from Brazil. And today we are going to talk basically about mediumship. And the book as a whole talks about the evolution of the spirit and mainly the spiritual body, the perispirit. But in today's presentation, we are going to talk, as I said, basically about mediumship, how mediumship emerged uh, between we as humans. And so let's start by the first topic here, mediumship and the spiritual body. What André Luiz says, he starts to talk about the human aura, the aura that we all have. So what is the basis of the aura that every one of us has, right? Have, and he says that all the cellular aggregations from our body, the trillions of cells that compose our body, emit radiations that constitute tissues of energy, right, around the bodies that manifest in them. So meaning that we have all this radiation emitting from our bodies, right? And all living beings, not only we humans, but all the animals, the plants, all living beings, from the most rudimentary, could be a bacteria, for example, to the most complex, are surrounded by an energetic aura, right? Which is such tissues of energy that he mentioned, right? And in human beings, and we and us, this projection is enriched by continuous thought, forming around the individual a radiant duplicate known as vital body or etheric double. Okay, so these tissues of energy that we have around us, around our body, and is enriched, Angela says, by continuous thought. So what he's saying here is that our thought, in some way, influences such aura, right? So that you may perceive it here that if you our thought, if in good or bad, influence our vital body or aura, then it means that someone that could, let's say, read our aura, could see what we are thinking about, right? So that's basically he's saying. But more than that, right? Because we have this aura influenced by our thought, it serves also to let's say, in front of the aura of another person, if it's such thought that we have are similar to that person, then we would feel sympathy for the person, right? And on the opposite, we would feel antipathy. So this, you see, this is the beginning of the mediumship issue. You see that there is here an interaction, right, between people, even between incarnates, or between an incarnate and a discarnate person, through our aura. So that's the beginning, right, of the mediumship issue. So that, and as we said then, that thought circulates within this electromagnetic tunic, which is our aura, our vital body, and coloring it with its vibrations and images. Vibrations and images of our thought. What we are thinking, we reflect in our aura as vibrations or images. And if it's a vibration, for example, the people who get close to us could feel discomfort, right? If it's such a vibration are not good, right? And the opposite when the vibration are good, right? Then a person that feels close to us would feel comfortable, right? So and this in this vital body or aura, we displace our desires and pictures we create before radiating them toward the objects and goals it seeks. So when we are thinking about something and I desire that thing, for example, all of this is reflected in our aura, right? And we radiate then before going toward that object, right? And thus, Andrade says, we have the human aura, peculiar to everyone, right? Seeming to emerge from the individual like an ovoid field, right? The aura is kind of an ovoid, a form of egg around our body, right? And it doesn't have the human form like the perispirit has, right? Or the spiritual body. And the aura reflects a diverse range of colors according to the mental wave that we emit, right? Portraying the thought that corresponded to our objectives and choices, whether ennobling or degrading, right? So our aura has colors also, right? You can think about, for example, if the person is happy, is for example praying, that such aura would be bright, right? And when the person is depressed or is full of anger, hatred, then such aura would be more for the dark color, right, than a bright one. So that's basically what Andrade is saying here. And then let's talk now about the initial mediumship, right? So Angela says that the aura is our omnipresent platform in all communications with others, right? And through our aura, we are observed by higher intelligence and sensed and recognized by fellow beings attuned to us, right? Like I said, someone that who can read our aura, like the high order spirit, they can see what we are thinking, right? And because the reflection of what we are thinking is there on our aura, is reflected there on our aura. And we are also feared or antagonized or loved and assisted, right, by those treading pathways less advanced than ours. So people who is less, let's say, um, less evolved than us, depending on the on our aura, which is based on our thoughts, uh, they could feel fear, or they could feel attraction, right, love. So or friend friendship, for example, right. So this is because, Andrelli says, we exteriorize a reflection of ourselves in context of thought to thought, right? Through our auras, right? Our aura and the aura of the other person, and without the need of words to convey the underlying sympathies and antipathies, right? Like I said, you don't need to talk, right? Just by feeling the vibration of the aura of someone else, you automatically feel sympathy or antipathy for that person, according to the combination or no combination of the auras, right? And it's due, until it says, to this vibrational shield that all the mediumistic work on earth begin. So you see, it is in the same way that we have this kind of a sympathy or antipathy between we and another person, a friend, for example, the same occurs between we and a discarnate person, right? So then we have the beginning of the mediumship. So, by the natural presentation of our own auras, or their own auras, Andrea is talking about more evolved incarnates. And so, more evolved incarnates attracted more evolved spirits. So, this is the point that I just mentioned, right? We as incarnate attracting the attention of a spirit, right? Discarnate spirit. And when our aura, let's say, is full of good thoughts, for example, then we attract more evolved spirits whose benevolent hearts bend down towards the earthly realm to assist us, right? So we attract the help of high order spirits. And also, we as mediums, we attract those more evolved spirits, and through such attraction, we can work as medium, right, to help others, right, or suffering people, for example, right. And by the same token, incarnates who were rebellious towards the divine law enticed the company of spirits of the same category. That is low order spirits in this case, right? Because the incarnate are rebellious. And so, hence, David says, uh, they became points of contact, right? Our auras, right? Between light and darkness, right? Light, if our aura is good; darkness, if our aura is not that good, right? And good and evil, and they're locked in combat on earth, right? So that's basically what he's saying here. You see, this the beginning of a mediumship, right? We still are not, let's say, communicating, right, with the spirit, but we are still have a kind of a approximation, a kind of affinity, right? A kind of a connection without words with the spirits. Intuition was the initial system of interchange. Right? Here we still don't have the word, we just have the thought, right? So initiating individuals into the subtle process of telementation, right? You have the definition here below. Telementation is the influence of the mind at a distance. So by combining such a combination of the aura, right, our aura and the aura of a discarnate spirit, it can influence us at a distance, influence in our mind, in our thought, right? So, for example, suppose that I'm planning to execute a bad deed, for example, right? then an attract a low order spirit, and that spirit will, in some way, because he has the same thinking as me, he will reinforce my intention of executing that bad deed, right? So that's a kind of an influence. It's only on a thought level. Uh, doesn't have a communication with the words still, right? And so through the thought waves, similar minds were attracted to one another to carry out edifying or constructive work, right? Edifying and constructive work. And by the other hand, stationary souls mutually insisted one another to originate various processes of symbiosis, right? Similar to the example that I just gave, right? So, but symbiosis is something more complex, because it's something that is not just a superficial connection, but is a more well, let's say, a stable connection, right, between we, for example, and that spirit, right? And we have definition below. Symbiosis is a close relationship between two or more organisms living together, which can be beneficial, neutral, or harmful to them. Right? We will see the example, one example of each one of these uh, further. Right? So then let's talk now about sleep in disengagement. Uh, when we go to sleep, the physiological sleep, um, Anjali says, entailed new possibilities for those devoted to the endeavor of desire and mentalizing. Because when we go to sleep, we little by little we start to disengage our perispirit, or our subtle body, our spiritual body, while keeping the connection to the physical body by a fluidic tie. So meaning that when we are going to sleep, when we are sleeping, then we as a spirit, together with our perispirit, we can disengage from the physical body, which stays there, lying on the bed, and we, as with our perispirit, we go to the spiritual realm, right? And but in the beginning, most of the time, Androli says, the mind or the spirit remains juxtaposed to the physical body, pondering or imagining according to its problem and concerns, needs and desires. Meaning that the spirit is disconnected from the physical body while the body is sleeping, let's say, resting, but the spirit with its spiritual body, connected by a fluidic tie to the physical body, remains closer to the physical body, doesn't go anywhere, right? So and that's what Angela is saying here, because the spirit still doesn't know that he or she can move, right, away from the physical body. So that's what he's saying here. Then we are going to talk about some aspects of the disengagement. So there he says that during sleep, the mind builds the incessant wave of its own thought images it enjoys in pleasant dreams. So something that we like, for example, when we are sleeping, so we work on that thing that we like, and then we, let's say, kind of transform that in dreams, right? And at the other times, Angela says, the mind reaps during its sleep the results of its excesses, suffering disturbances of the damaged viscera or nerves, or else suffering the weight of remorse for past wrongs, right? So imagine, for example, a night full of a nightmare, right? So would be a situation like this, right? We are reaping during sleep the result of our excess, right? So, and in either case, having pleasant dreams or having nightmares, the mind, it means we, right? We are visited by discarnates, offering help when we are inclined toward the moral ascension, right? And the friendly spirits. Or discarnates that come to sapping our energies and whispering evil suggestions when we agree with such shameful psychical consortium, right? So you see that at the end of the day, everything depends on us, right? On what we are thinking. By through our thinking, we attract a good or bad companion, right? That's what Andrea is saying here. And so next step is the spontaneous mediumship. Very slowly, Angeli says, the mind means the spirit, right, achieves awareness during sleep, which provides it with semi-liberation. So in that case, the spirit doesn't stay close to the physical body the whole night, like in the beginning, right? The spirit notices that he can move it away from his physical body, always connected through the fluidic tie, right? So in the initial phase of this new development, Andrade says, the mind is naturally drawn to objects that engage its interest, right? So the spirit goes looking for what attract his interest, whether it's a good thing or a bad one, right? So and then he says, farmers, for example, return in their spiritual body to the field they have sown, and hunters return to the forest, right, looking for animals to catch, right, and sowers of the good return. Sowers of the good return to their field of service, and by the other hand, the guilty return to the scene of their crime, right? So that's when occurs such kind of a semi-liberation, right, of the spirit regarding its physical body, right? So you see, in all this process, mediumship is developing. So this process here, it takes. We could think about thousands of years, right, through the human being development. And then it was, Andali says, through the consolidation of such experiences that spontaneous mediumship began on Earth, right? So because uh, those incarnate that demonstrated the more obvious mediumistic abilities, they went from observations during sleep to observations while awake, right? So, for example, every night some people say, well, I'm afraid of ghosts, for example, or of spirits, right? So, what such a person uh, does does not acknowledge is that every night when he or she is going to sleep, she finds spirits, right? And she even talks with the spirit. So, and that's during sleep. But then, after some times, if the person, like here, Anjali says, have mediumistic abilities, then the person starts to make observations while awake, right? So is when then the person starts to see spirits not only during sleep, but when it is awake, right? So then it's the case of mediums, the seeing mediums who can see spirits, for example, right? And so that is the development here, right? So and the less dense the links between the physical and the spiritual bodies in the organ of sight, the example that I'm giving, the greater the potential for clairvoyance, right? So in this case, here the medium can see not only people, personal people, right? But he or she can see something that is happening in another city, for example, right? So, for example, if we have some festival going on there, he can have a vision of festival through this faculty of clairvoyance. And the same norm applies to clairaudience when the people hear, right, the voices, and also materialization upon condensation of the ectoplasm. So here is the mediums of the physical effect phenomena and other faculties, right, mediumship faculties. And then subsequently, Andrelli says, communications between the physical and extra-physical plane began, but in a very primitive way. So here is just now that the communication starts, right? But in a very primitive way, he says, right? Let's see what is this very primitive way. So these in the beginning, these all are related to development of a mythology, right? Because in the beginning, black magic, and at least it says, came next, right? After that situation when sleep and so on. And magic came next, something that higher intelligences opposed with religion as being divine magic, right? So in the beginning, we have those sorcerers, right? Those magicians, let's say, that started to develop it such black magic, right? Which intends to, let's say, control the gods or harm a person he doesn't like, right? So, and then opposed to such black magic, which basically is founded on ignorance and evil intent, we have from the higher intelligence the idea of a religion, right, which is divine magic because is connect us with God and urge us to execute bad good deeds instead of a bad one, right? So thereby, Andrelli says, the development of mythology came first, right? With familiar spirits being classified as gods. And such a tutelary spirit, he says, they use these suitable human messengers who are the mediums to encourage the progress of agriculture, shepherding, industry, and art. Right? This there on the primitive times, right? And you see that such familiar spirit that we still have today um, help in some way even those people who are involved still in ignorance about such leadership issue, right? And then Dali says that since those bygone ages, good and evil have been engaged in a tremendous conflict that's still far from over, like we see today, right, in our world. A conflict founded on conscious or unconscious, technical or empirical mediumship. So here we already have the mediumship, right? Meaning that for a sorcerer, magician from the primitive tribes uh, are already medium, right? That's what Angel is saying here, but not a medium that is doesn't don't know how to utilize their faculty properly. And then now Andel is talking about the function of the spiritist doctrine, right? So here he says that the mediumship has nothing to do with the moral principles that rule the problems of destiny and the soul. So mediumship. So the people doesn't don't the person doesn't need to be a high order person, high order um, uh, uh, person to be a medium, right? So mediumship manifests, and there it says, in learned and unlearned, righteous and unrighteous individuals, and thus then raising the need for right conduct, right? So good people, bad people, everyone can manifest mediumship. So the point here is not having mediumship, but is conducting such faculty in a correct way. Right? That's why, under it says, the guides of a progress, which are the high order spirits, uphold the Spiritist doctrine in today's world as a divine flame, right? Which is the Spiritism, right? The, the, the spirit, the high order spirits that dictate, for example, all of those teachings uh, which now compose the Spiritist doctrine. Right? And the Spiritism Christianizes phenomena and objectives, characters and faculties, so that the gospel of Jesus may be incorporated into human relations. So, mediumship with Jesus, as we say in Spiritism, is the proper utilization of our mediumship faculties. So, basically, is what Andel is saying here, right? That mediumship must be used only for the good and never for the evil. Mediumship is a faculty that's inherent to life itself, right? It's in this sense that in general we are all medium, right? Although when we talk about the mediumship faculty, we talk about those who have such a faculty more advanced, let's say, right? More evolved. So, and but anyway, with all its deficiencies and greatness, trials and errors, mediumship is like is like the gift of a common sight, right? Which is responsible for so many glories and so many misfortunes on earth. Right? So, the same way that we have our senses, right? In this case, sight, we have a mediumship, and we can do good or bad deeds with that, right? With it. It requires the improvement of the mediumistic vehicle in addition to noble purposes, so that the spiritual body may also develop itself to be a loyal filter of the higher sphere. So our medium, our mediumship must be developed, right? And we must utilize for noble purpose, as Angeli said here, right? And in such case, through our spiritual body, we will be a loyal filter of the high order spirits, right? The high order realm, right? In this case. Why is he's mentioned here spiritual body? Because all this interaction, right, between we and the discarnate spirits are done, remember in the beginning, they are done through our aura, through our vital body, right? And our vital body actually is part of our spiritual body, right? That's why Andrea is mentioned here, spiritual body. This kind of all the faculties of mediumship are happens through our spiritual body, not through our physical body. For example, when I am awake and I see this current spirits, I do not see with my physical eyes, right? I see with my, let's say, peri-spiritual eyes, right? And so that's what happened, right? And Allan Kardec says that even if the person closes its eyes, he still keeps seeing the spirits because he's not seeing with his physical eyes, right? So that's basically what Andal is saying here. So let's talk a little bit more about spiritual symbiosis that we start to talk that in the beginning, right? Symbiosis is any close and long-term biological interaction between two organisms of a different species, right? So imagine, for example, the bacteria that we have in our intestines, right? So those are organisms of different species, right? So they are bacteria, they are not human beings. And they are very important to our digestive process, right? So, and at the same time, they benefit from the, let's say, the food that they can have by being there, right, in our intestines. So this is a kind of symbiosis that both sides benefit, right? So which is mutualism we can see here. So then such interactions that's why such interactions are categorized as mutualism, which is the example that I just gave, commensalism, or parasitism, often influencing survival. So mutualism is the example that I gave of the bacteria, but also we have here the example of the bees and flower, right? The bees transport the pollen from one flower to the flower to the other, right? And at the same time, the bees get nectar, right, from the flowers to, to feed themselves, right? So this is a mutual beneficial interaction, right? Commensalism is happens when one species benefits what the other is neither helped nor harmed, right? The example here is the barnacles on whales, right? The barnacles, they get on the whale's body, and then as the whales swim on the ocean, they filter the food that they need, right, for which is there on the water, right? So, and then this is they benefit from being there at the whale's body, and the whales are not harmed by that, right? Only with well, relatively, because when uh, a whale has too much barnacles in its body, then it harm him, harm the whale, because um, swimming starts to be difficult because the weight, right, of the barnacles. But by the other hand, Andrea Luis says about the situation of if a whale is fighting another whale, such barnacles functions as a kind of a shield, right? So that is also this situation here. But basically, is a commensalism, right? And parasitism is the worst case here, because in this case, one species benefits while harming the host, right? The example is ticks on a dog, right? Because ticks feed have let's say their food from the dog's blood, right? And by extracting the blood from the dog, they are already harming. But on top of that, they can also transmit diseases to the dog, right? So this is parasitism. And why we are talking about this, or why Angel Luis is talking about this, right? Because this can happen also between spirits in this interaction, right? Between incarnate and discarnate. We can have all the situation here, right? Which he's going to talk, we're going to be talking here about symbiosis of the mind, right? Symbiosis of minds is a process of association employed by the discarnate mind that still has not adjusted to its existence after the grave, right? So the person has died, but even if he's dead now, he's afraid of the spiritual realm, right? So and then he keep it close to his or her family. So this is a kind of and keeping living there, right, with the incarnate. So that's the situation here. That's why Angeli says, terrified before the unknown, the spiritual realm, the spirit makes use of the receptiveness of those who mourn its loss and clings to those it loves. Because you see that why is symbiosis? Because the person, the dead person, is afraid of the spiritual realm, and then is keep close to its family. But its families, the person who composed its family, are mourning him, right? Because he just passed away. So there is a mutual attraction. So this form the symbiosis, which is a kind of a permanent connection, right? And the problem is that it discharges, Anjali says, the emanations of the spiritual body, the dead person, into the psychosomatic tissues of the living person, right? Or of his family person who are alive, right? Of those who give it shelter, extracting their vitality. So this And then we have a kind of a parasitism, right? The incarnate mind, uh, the family, unconsciously surrenders to the discarnate spirit that controls its existence, right? For example, let's say a son of someone that passed away, right? So such son, which is living, still alive, surrender to such control of its passed away dad, and in exchange it enjoys protection against the attack of even more oppressive unseen forces, meaning that the the daddy will protect him from obsession, for example, right? From high or low order spirits. So this is a kind of symbiosis. In this case, both benefit from the symbiosis. Uh, Symbiosis is also connected to hysteria and psychoneurosis, right? So mental disorders. Spiritual symbiosis, Angela says, may be expressed in complex nervous disorders such as history epilepsy, right? And here, the patient suffers an attack of epilepsy, right? Fell on the ground, starts to move quickly, right? So, and then the patient suffered a tonic spasm accompanied by clonic convulsions, heavy convulsions of multiple aspects. In this case, we saw a case like this when we were studying the book In the Realms of Mediumship from the same author, right, Andrea Luis. And so you see that spiritual symbiosis is closely connected with the disease, epilepsy disease in this case, right? And we also encounter, Angeli says, a broad range of psychoneurotics, right? Person with have psychoneurosis, where the discarnate spiritus subjugates the patient's mental field by imposing the substance of its own thought, right? So it's like we saw, well, I think we saw last month, or no, I don't remember now very well because we but when such a substance of its own thought, which is of course is not good thought, which is imposed on the patient's mental field, is like we call in spiritism fluidic infections, right? So that's what I don't remember very well if we have talking already about that. And they are both the patient and the spirit at a stand still in time, right? They stop it in time until the laws of life demand their indispensable change through difficulties or pain, right? So when we don't want, right, to evolve, then suffering or pain will come in order to let's say trigger or will, right, to go forward. So that's what Angelo is saying here. Then we have this another more complex situation with obsession and vampirism, right? So in a different process, Angeli says, we find the circuits of obsession and vampirism among incarnates and discarnates. Here we will talk about fluidic infections. So victims of homicide and violence, it means the discarnate spirit, right? Engage in atrocious vendetta, right? Vengeance, paying back blow with blow instead of forgiveness. So, in a previous life, I killed someone else, for example, right? So now I am reincarnated on Earth, and that my victim is still there on the spiritual realm, right? So in this case, he starts to obsessing me, right? So and trying to have this vendetta, right, against me. So many attack their adversaries by stimulating their minds with monstrous mental forms. Here's the fluid infection that I mentioned, right? which cause mental collapse with devastating insanity. So it's a situation with, for example, when the spirit do that in my mind, I start to see monstrous form, right? So I'm awake now, and I start to see most monstrous form. That can drive me crazy sometime in the future, right? And others keep attached, Andali says, to their victims in a state of a monotheistic fixation, right? The spirit is attached to the incarnate person, and stay fixated at that person, right? So displaying morphological changes in their spiritual body, which atrophied because of disuse, resemble ovoids. So this is a situation which the spirit is full of hatred against the victims, and so concentrated on that and only on that, that its spiritual body loses the human form, right? And became a kind of a ovoid, right? So, from a human form to an egg form, right? So this is a very complex situation, because the such a spirit will only have again the human form in its spiritual body by the process of a reincarnation. So that's what we are seeing here. And the obsessor, the spirit, lives in the atmosphere of the victim in a morbid symbiosis, right? Draining his or her physical, her psychical energy, right? So it is extracting the energies, the vital energy from the incarnated person. So that's why we call vampirism, right? Because vampire, when we see in the novels, is that being that sucks the blood, right, from the people. And here's the case, the the spirit as a vampire sucks, let's say, the vital energy from the for an incarnate person, right? So, and the victims generally accept the influence of the spirit mechanically. This based on the thoughts of remorse and late repentance, right? So you see that every time we have obsession, there is a base for the connection between we and our obsessor, right? Could be, for example, remorse for a past deed that something that let's say a bad action that I accomplished against that person, and then now I have remorse, repentance, and that is the base for the link, right? So that's what Andrelis is explaining here. And then we have this situation for parasitism and reincarnation. So depending on the extent of the moral debt, because now Andrelis is going to talk how to solve that such situation, right? Such complex situation. So then he says, depending on the extent of the moral debt, the obsessive process extends beyond the host's physical death. So it means that the this current spirit is obsessing the incarnate person, and then sometimes in the future the incarnate person pass away. Huh? So then both are in the spiritual realm. What Andalo is saying, that there in the spiritual realm, the discarnate spirit keeps obsessing the now also discarnate person, victim, there in the spiritual realm. So that's what he's saying here. So meaning that the cycle of hatred doesn't end, right? So, keeping happening, whether one of them is here, the other is on the spiritual realm, or both are there on the spiritual realm, or even both are there incarnate, right? Because we have also obsession between incarnates, right? And then how to solve such a situation, right? So then Angela Luis explains the divine mercy uh, authorize the reincarnation of the spirit that deserves its first, right? So probably in this case I'm mentioning, the person that was alive, now it is dead, and together with this current spirit, right? Probably he will reincarnate because he is the death, right? Now, he will reincarnate again in next opportunity, and then Landelli said here, right? From infants onward, such a reincarnated spirit person continues to be entwined by its troubled companion or companions because it may have more than one obsessor, right? And then this lasts, and then he says, until one day, often by means of a marriage, uh, through which such a now reincarnated person provides its persecutors, the obsessors, a new physical body. So meaning that the person which is now reincarnate, it receives, let's say, his own obsessor as his or her children. And that's what Andal is saying here. So that this way, he says, as children of its blood and heart, will be able to settle their past debts using the currency of selflessness, right? Because then, as a father or mother, he will treat the former obsessors, now son or daughter, and will treat them with love, right? With selflessness. So this way, he will settle, he will pay, right, his past debt. So here we can see that everything in the universe, this is a divine law, goes toward love, right? You can have hatred again in a certain circle, but farther in the future, only love will remain, right? Hatred will be over in some way. So such then this is one of the process, right? How it happens. So that's is something very important for us to know about. Uh, so then now here the list talks about the treatment for parasitism of the soul. So any individual, he says, may find the living practice of the good to be an effective treatment against the parasitism of the soul. So meaning that, for example, I have a discarnate spirit who is obsessing me. I am alive now. I'm incarnate, and I don't need to 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 wait that I'm like the process that we just seen, right? I don't need to wait that someday in the future I passed away, then I reincarnate again to receive that successor as my son, for example. No, now when we are still under this obsessing process, and when I am still incarnate, we can solve such situation, right? By practicing the good. What Andrew is saying here, right? So that's why hosts, the victims, the one which is suffering the obsession, um, must educate and reform themselves, right? So I may now, under such a obsession, I may now educate and reform myself so that devoting myself, for example, to charity, for example, to one's neighbor, and through humility, I will attract invaluable sympathies from uh, good spirits and providential interventions on my behalf, right? So that's what Andalou is saying here. Excuse me. And then when our obsessor, right, our discarnate spirits see us transfigured for the better, such adversaries that we have now will be disarmed of evil and finally understand that the good is the only path of freedom and life before God, right? Something that just said, right? In the future, only love will remain, right? So hatred in some way, in some point, will finish. So, and we can do that now, right? We don't wait for some time in the future. So that's what Andrew is saying here. I think that's what we have for today, Raz. So today we went through this chapter here, right? In spiritual symbiosis, spiritual vampirism, and mediumship and the spiritual body. So next month we will see the part 6 of this book, and then we will finish the first part of the book, because the book has 2 parts, right? The first part and the second part. So next month we will finish the first part of the book, and then in July we start the second part of the book. So thank you for having me, and let me hand over to Stephen.
Thank you, my friend. It was wonderful. Finish part 1. That's it.
No, no, we have still part 6 to finish part 1 of the book.
Yeah, no, we finished part 1 of the book. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Okay.
So, good. Looks like we don't have any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That is on.
you were spot on, like 57 minutes.
Pat is always with us.
Yeah.
Uh,
So just Pat wrote interesting and thought-provoking discussion. Thank you for
uh,
sharing. Thank you, Patty.
yeah. And today we have Valdiana also.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, I
So
think we can
Stefan,
move on.
next presentation will be on the 23rd of June. Okay.
23rd
Of
June.
June. Yeah.
Okay,
Then we'll see part 6.
okay. Watanabe. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, guys, put in your agenda 23rd of June. We
Right.
have part 6, and with that, we're gonna close the book part 1.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So
So,
final prayer.
yes, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you again for watching, and now we are going to finish by thanking all the spiritual benefactors for supporting us and all the study of this book, Evolution in Two Worlds. And let's thanks Jesus also for the opportunity of be reunited here in His name. And finally, thanks for God for the gift of a life, where we can learn about the spiritism and evolve in our intellectual and moral aspects. So be it.
Amen. Okay,
Okay.
so my friends, thank you. For those who are still in the middle of your day, have the wonderful rest of your day. For those who are in Ireland, have a good night and enjoy enjoy your day. Thank you. So thank you,
Thank you.
Tanabe. Thank you, Fasp. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye.